there's a couple of things that jump out to me. I think it really is a visual demonstration of the argument that we're all having around we're very good at compliance and getting from compliance to proactive safety, the reality of work and how we really stress test what makes us feel comfy on paper. I think it draws out that problem. And actually that's a problem for the entire profession. We're very, very good at the compliance piece. We can talk about legislation all day, we can do ISO all day, we're good at producing the paper and the process. But the really big push for our profession is how we move into using that, what we're ideally putting on paper, how do we make that a real environment? How do we bring it to life? How do we use it to proactively go into the workplace and make a difference? So I think it really highlights for me, compliance driven we still are, but we absolutely have an aspiration to get proactive, and it's still a really key problem across every industry.
So one of the things that I noticed is that we see that some of the sectors that have traditionally embraced and invested in safety culture assessments and benchmarking activities such as mining and utilities are reflected in the data as the most mature sectors. And that's encouraging for me because traditionally safety culture assessments have been expensive, they've been time consuming, they've been multidisciplinary, they've been fabulous, but they haven't been accessible to many organisations across lots of different sectors. I'm excited by the prospect that through the use of our technology, we're making safety culture benchmarking more accessible and continuous improvement simpler and more effective. That should drive improvements across more sectors. And I look forward to seeing that reflected in the report year on year.
Yeah, there's some really interesting data in here which probably won't surprise a lot of people, but one of the major strengths is around compliance. And when you look at where the industry has been focused over the last 40 or 50 years, it's been around compliance. We're actually really quite good at compliance. You know, we do have a health and safety policy. We understand what the requirements around PPE are. We have a very good view on the things that we need to tick off to make sure that we're legally compliant, for example. I think the other side of that is then moving towards safety culture. And some of the key things in there for me, particularly around induction of executive and board suite, for example. One of the challenges there is if you fundamentally believe that everything starts from the top, it starts from leadership. And in this case, the data is telling us that one of the weaknesses that we've got systemically is that boards and C-suite don't necessarily understand what good safety culture looks like. Boards and C-suite haven't necessarily been inducted in health and safety. It's one of the biggest weaknesses. And if they don't understand what good health and safety looks like, what good compliance looks like, what good safety culture looks like, then you can't expect them to lead that through the organisation and cascade through the organisation.
What the report shows through the insights, that directors and managers actually do have the right intent. So there is value attached to doing health, safety, wellbeing well, and so there's good intent. But what it also tells us is actually the capability and the expertise required to make the right decisions to generate the right outcomes is light and needs more development and more focus. So that's board directors understanding safety governance at a deeper level. It's executive management and management understanding their role in health, safety, wellbeing to a deeper level. And then it's ensuring that risks are well understood. So they're often written down, but not necessarily well understood, and that has a direct increase in risk to workforce that are exposed through doing the work. So I think there's some really positive stuff in there in terms of the current level of maturity that we're seeing out there, but equally there's some clear and obvious areas for the improvement focus, which is around lifting director knowledge, lifting management knowledge, improving how we do our audit and assurance, and in fact softening the word audit to just fundamentally checking to make sure things are being done the way we intended them to be done. And continuing, I suppose, the move into really understanding why things are working effectively rather than, I suppose traditionally we look at when something goes wrong, we have a failure, there's an investigation, etc., and we get our lessons learned from that. But actually we're doing a lot of things right. Do we understand why they're going right? And then doing more of that. So yeah, I think overarching, there's some really good takeaways there. Again, it's going to help us myth bust in terms of where we think the overall kind of level of safety culture maturity sits and where it actually sits. And I think businesses, any business looking at this report and absorbing those insights will be able to take something out of it to apply in their business.
So the report's telling us that 81% of the elements assessed across all sectors were still at Tier 3, commonly aligning to compliance requirements and obligations. Now, that could be interpreted that, on the whole, compliance has been one of the driving investments, or the drivers for investment, and effectively setting the default standard for health and safety performance. Regulation can have that anchor effect, driving investment to a point, but then also stifling it beyond that. It's important, but it's not infallible. And that's really where we see the potential to unlock an awful lot of value in terms of safety culture. So I'm hoping that this report can help reframe the game, help inspire leaders to strive beyond compliance rather than resting on compliance, and enable them to deliver that greater value to their organisation in terms of harm reduction, but also providing and unlocking some of those financial, social and sustainability benefits for their organisation.